welcome to part 2. Today we're going to be looking at Sub-Zero as well as Scorpion, who we looked at in part 1. So, these guys are the mascots. And that's the reason why. However, they're also pretty emblematic of how the White Lotus Dojo series is going to go. If I have the tournament built variations to the letter built, and I'm actually going to jump ahead and say, and make absolutely certain and show you guys that I do have the tournament variations of Scorpion in there. What better way to do that than go into a tournament variation and show you the abilities on hand. So, Reborn, Hellport Cancel, and Demon Slam. That's in variation 1. Variation 2 is Death Spit, Desperate Combo, and Burning Spear. That's this one. Misery Blade and Sin Blade in Burning Spectre. What's variation 4? See what I mean? But for Sub-Zero, I don't have anything that's that basic variation. I have Arctic Trap and Creeping Ice. There's Arctic Trap and Creeping Ice, Deep Freeze and Cold Shoulder, and Frigid Storm, Deathsickle Barrage, and Polar Ice, and Air Polar Axe. I only have this variation, the Canadian variation. Oh, hi, I'm a Canadian, eh? That is a competitive variation. Everybody else is not competitive because I either have the Rising Ice or I have the Ground Freeze. So, or I have the abilities in a combination that doesn't really work. I might actually, now that I'm looking at this, I might actually turn Iceman Cometh into variation 3, just because it had the Sleetsicles for the Sleetsicle buff when that was a thing. When you had a buff that buffed the Deathsickle Barrage damage by 9%, and I had 2 of them on there for 18%. And now that they've changed all the augments, no such thing. So, I'm just going to make these guys competitive variations, and I'll go into competitive variation 1 in the training mode to show you guys. So, excuse me.
Sub-Zero. Scorpion.
And we're going to pick on alternate color Kryptonite Scorpion. And this time we are going to go to the Retrocade, because this just feels right. So, Subba-lubba-ding-dong! Oh, that didn't really change much, did it? So, Dead of Winter is tournament variation number 1. And this variation is very basic. This is a very straightforward variation. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't change if I reset it. So, I'm going to look at attacks that don't have extensions. There we go. Living Forest. Love this stage. So, let's see what we got. This has a combo extension. This has a combo extension. This has Brutal Kick. Okay, so Brutal Kick does not have that. Roundhouse we'll also have a look at. Excuse me. Prejudice Strike, Cold Front, Axe Swipe, Chilled Heal, and then Back Throw. And then I guess Toward Throw as well. Brutal Kick is an advancing mid. Does pretty good damage and is a little bit faster than it used to be. I have to turn on the frame data for both. However, you get this twice in a row, you get that Crushing Blow. Does 260 damage and covers a decent distance. However, it also has a Crushing Blow requirement that is interesting. Break Armor. Because this attack breaks armor. So, unlike Scorpion, who gets a combo, Sub-Zero gets a free Crushing Blow. Not the best Crushing Blow in the world, but it's a unique one regardless, so it doesn't interfere with anything else. Roundhouse is a 19 frame high that does decent damage, leaves the opponent standing, and is special cancelable. at least in certain special moves like this. So what I do is that I jump in and then do this. And in the corner, I can just do it in the corner like this for decent damage. And that's what I would use it for. I use this as a confirm. I always use these kind of heavier attacks as confirms if I can, because this allows me to maximize my damage for the fewest hits. Because otherwise, I'm having to do more hits that end up doing less damage. Like here, I'll show you as an example. The only thing that's different is what's going to be after the first jump punch. See, that's 289. And that's 316. That's more damage than with the extra hits, because this is one hit that has minimal combo scaling and it does decent damage. Look for these kinds of moves to use as confirms in order to maximize your damage. Next we have Frigid Strike. A short range short hop that is 10 frames. That hits from about there. Cold Front hits from shorter range, has the same amount of damage, but can throw off the opponent because of its animation. You can just... And it's also active for a lot longer too. It's active for 5 frames, which is actually fairly high for a short hop. Then there's the wake-up attack. So I'm going to have Scorpion walk in and sweep. And Chilled Heal is his invincible wake-up. As you'd expect, it's decent. And as a mid, it catches opponents even if they're trying to stay low. With Axe Swipe, you get a combo extension. Not a great one, but a combo extension regardless. And even then, I'm not that well practiced in this, so you can make me look like an idiot with that in comparison. Next up, we have his throws. His toward throw, I'm going to make note of first. It doesn't have a crushing blow, but look at how close he is. I can actually use a footsie standing 4 to hit him, which is going to be scary because he's got because Sub-Zero has a lot of options that hit from this range, including a 4-dash throw. And then back throw gives Sub-Zero more distance. But if Sub-Zero were to get a failed throw tech, look at the Danny. That's a crushing blow throw. Wow. That's it for unique normals. Let's move on to combo attacks. Like Scorpion, Sub-Zero doesn't have too many strings, so there isn't a whole lot to remember. But what he does have is really good. Cold Encounter comes off of an 8-frame jab and knocks the opponent back. This is a good way to get some distance in certain variations, but what you're really going to be aiming for using this in is as a combo ender. Example, here's a universal. Right? You get some decent distance, but what you really want to do is, I'm actually going to force him to be in the corner, is look at that. 35%, no problem. Can be even more if you aim for it. So that's what you're going to be using it for. You're going to be using it for combo damage. And you can even use it as a combo extender mid-screen, but it's a lot easier to get your extensions here if you do it with the meter burn. Look at that damage. That's almost 400 damage, no problem. And that's because of the Ice Ball's unique properties in this variation, which we'll get into later. Look at that, 40%. 40% in Dead of Winter with that crushing blow. It is not bad. And if you're curious, does this get rid of the forward 4 crushing blow? Like how if you have 2 crushing blow throws and you do one, you can't do the other? The answer is no. You can get them both because they're different crushing blows. Not a bad thing at all. Next is Frozen Over. This comes off of a 14 frame high with really good range. Start of the match range every single time. This can be converted into a 4, and then this for a combo ender in either slide or cold shoulder. However, keep this in mind. Despite how this second hit looks, it's not actually an overhead. So you can just duck block this. You'll see this used a lot as a combo ender, so Exhibit A. And look, you're already in the corner, which is a dangerous spot to be against Sub-Zero. But just remember, this is a high. Oh, I actually forgot to cover block data for this. So, cold encounter, 0, 0, and then -4. So, safe on block, and he's got a lot of pushback. Frozen Over is -2, -4, and then -7. So, punishable, technically. So this is one of those strings that gets more unsafe the more you commit to it. And besides, you don't want to throw this out willy-nilly because being a high, you overextend, you get an uppercut crushing blow punish. As for flawless gaps, there's none in cold encounter, and there's none in Frozen Over. So there's nothing to worry about there when it comes to flawless blocks. Unless the opponent decides to get cheeky and wants to try a launcher. You can interrupt it late and fast in cold encounter. The only one you can't interrupt is a invincible because it's invincible. So, however, if they flawless block a back 1, they get a launcher right away. And if it's late, then they won't be able to get it. So, but if they delay it, they can. So most of the time they'll be able to get that off of the back 4. Or the back 1, sorry. Oh, and I forgot to check and see if flawless block data changes the... So what is that? -6, and with normal block, it's +4. So this attack is +4 on block, but if flawless block, it's -6, meaning that you can get a punish off a lot easier. Standing 4, if you get blocked, it's +2, but you're not gonna be throwing this out on block. I hope. Please don't. I'm trying to think. Is there any other? Oh yeah, I never did the block data for the short hop attacks, but that's because they're all punishable. Like that's -12. That's -12 on block, and then wake up attacks, they're generally safe. Unless they're launchers, then they're unsafe. So that's the general rule of thumb. Let's go back to combos here. New Threat comes off of another 8-frame high that does a little more damage. And the full thing knocks the opponent back. And if you want to use this as a combo extender, you absolutely can needlessly. So get your damage that way. I actually want to try something because I've seen Sub-Zeros do this where... There we go. Yeah, I've seen it happen where Sub-Zeros will do standing 2, but I've never been able to get it until now. I was never able to get it until now, but now that I've seen it, absolutely go for it. As for block data, +1, -8, so punishable, and then -4. So in the middle, you can do something like this. If I take control of Scorpion, and then if I do this, really? What about a... Ah, so because of the pushback, he's actually safe. So that's really good. That's actually really good to know. And of course, -4 is not punishable by anybody, so this string itself is actually safe and it has decent pushback too, so that's a plus. Next, but as for flawless block stuff, I said flawless block stuff, +1, and no flawless block gaps anywhere. So, pretty good all around. And as for interruptions... Yeah, Rising Blade can catch when it's fast. Trade if it's delayed, which means it will never catch the opponent if it's late. So it's one of those situations where you got to be fast, otherwise you're not going to really get anything out of it. Now it's time for the bad one. Oh boy, it's time for the one. It's time for the attack that makes everybody salty online. Unchained. Oh wait, that's the next attack. Sorry, Unchained does not make people salty, but this is a meterless launch. So you can do this, and then get a combo extension that way. Hang on. Can I actually get that 8-hit crushing blow that way? Sorry, it's been a little while since I've done this. I absolutely can. So you can get a crushing blow from mid-screen using the back two from Unchained, which is actually not bad at all. Oh, hey, why is it... Oh. Is there an off option? Should be an off option. Oh, that's why, because reversal mode, on or off. Okay. That make all of the sense. But here's the thing, right? You finish the string, you get some distance. But you might be wondering, that doesn't look very safe. Like, can I punish this? No, you can't. And you theoretically could, but there's a little bit of pushback with this. That means you're probably not going to. Unless you flawless block. And then get your punish that way. But what I actually want, because that was on delay, what I actually want to show you, there's no flawless block gap, but this attack becomes is -2 regardless of how you block this. So, let's actually do another one of these switcheroos. Because I believe you can actually interrupt this. You can't. So it's actually uninterruptible, which is really odd to me. And I can't do that. I can at least try and go for a down 4. Unfortunately, like, none of Scorpion's attacks reach that far in -7, so it's actually not punishable at all. I thought it was. It appears it's one of those things that appears punishable on paper, but it isn't actually. Unless you flawless block. That's the key. Then we have... yeah, now we come to the move that everybody hates. Unchained. This hits from the start of the screen, and in fact hits from a little bit further, like a micro step backwards. Just barely. So, it's got to crack over the opponent's head, otherwise it's not going to land. See? Miss. And then it can be ended with this, which does knock down and is +37 on hit. Meaning Sub-Zero can dash in and do the whole thing over again, including throws. This is really rough because it's an overhead, and it's 19 frames. Borderline unreactable to most people, especially online. And if they do try to punish this, and if they do try to counter this and they miss, they'll be eating a crushing blow, which I have to go turn that back on now. Look at that. They're eating the same crushing blow damage as a back throw crushing blow. That's not very fun for most people, is it? Except for the Sub-Zero who actually lands the damn thing. But your prayers have been answered. This is unsafe on block. It's -6. So if they just do this, they're -6. And if they try any of their slower attacks, like if they try to loop this, they're in trouble. But the real beauty comes from when they overcommit. Look at this. -19. You have a full third of a second to punish the Sub-Zero in question. And in fact, it's such a big punish. It's such a big punish. Sub-Zero can get his own crushing blow. Look at that. Punish this, get a crushing blow launch, which for some reason is not coming out. And that's what you get for trying that and being unsafe, son. Look at that shit. And that's not all. Suppose that you do block this. You're well within throw range, which can also lead to crushing blow shenanigans as well. You can knock them down. You can uppercut them. You can sweep them. You can even, in some cases, land interactables. So you can do something like this if we're a little bit closer here. And get out of dodge. And now we're back, and now we're in the church. So, that is the beauty of this whole shebang. That's the beauty of being able to punish this thing. Oh look, it's Hornbuckle. Some people are not going to get that at all. So this is extremely punishable, right? But that's not all. It's also flawless blockable. And if I remember right, most of the time. Okay, so you need to be on point with it, but I'm willing to bet that you can. Yes, they try for it, and you're on point for a punish or for a counter because of the kick. But be careful trying to go for the block attacks, because unless it's invincible and they whiff the kicks, they will actually eat your launcher, because your launcher's not invincible, remember that. Where did my block options go? There they are. But yeah, from this range, be ready for the overhead at any time. And we're going to be talking more about that later. Below freezing is a string I almost never see Sub-Zeros throw out. It's a low mid with actually pretty respectable range on whiff. Like I can hit from start of the round with this string. However, it's a high, so it's pretty easy to punish, and that comes out at 29 frames. So the opponent should, in theory, be able to punish this relatively easily. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to show one other thing. Again, I'm going to show you the blocks. It's +2. This comes out +1 in all of this distance. So if I want to try and punish it, I'm going to have to be quick. Look, I even traded. I beat him with a poke. Can't beat him with a slower poke, though. Traded with a frame 8. Beat the ice spike. Look at that. If you get your punishments just right, and yes, this is probably technically safe online just because of the latency, but in an offline setting, I can punch this pretty reliably. And if I do punish it, I get a combo. But here's the thing. I can also flawless block this. If I wasn't terrible. The AI would probably be better at this than me. But if you want to flawless block it, you can get that punish. You can even beat the low if it's late. Look at that. Look at that. And then let's turn it off. Double flawless block right there. Bing, bing. Double flawless block right there. Very, very nice stuff. That should do it for strings, except for Frosty. This is the other part of why the overhead is ridiculous, because he has a 13-frame low that hits from about this range. And here's the crazy thing. Commit to the full thing, you are knocked down plus 50. So I could dash in and then go for maybe one of these. And if you try to wake up launch or something, I get the damage. But that's not what's scary. I can get a combo this way. So either you eat 25%, or you guess, or I commit, knock you down, and then go for this, which can potentially do 31%, basically. Ouch. That sounds ridiculous, and indeed it is. But remember, there's always hope. If you block this, it's -4, -6, and then -5. So it's not really punishable, especially if he fully commits to it. But if you punish this, he's not going to be able to get Ice Ball out, because Ice Ball is -16 in close range and has a 28-frame startup. And is a high, remember, so you can just say Nietskis to it. And as a result, you can punish Sub-Zero for this. Now, here's another thing that I'm going to have to talk about when we get to Variation 2, and that is the concept of zones. This is where zoners come in. Zoners are not keep-away characters all the time. They don't have to be. They just have to play within the zone that they're most comfortable in and that you can't touch them in. Whether that is figuratively or literally. So we'll talk about that later, though, because we got to talk about universal special moves. And technically, Sub-Zero only has one, and that's the Ice Ball, which has had the same effect since 1992. It freezes opponents, leaving them open to attack and giving Sub-Zero combos. However, the thing is that while this is technically his only universal special move, his slide is pseudo-universal. It's in his default moveset, but it isn't universal because he doesn't have it in Variation 1. One last thing before we go too far, I want to do a flawless block on this, just to see how the frame data changes. Doesn't change at all. Yeah, doesn't change at all, regardless of how you flawless block it, so. So now let's get into the variation exclusive things. First thing you'll probably notice is that Sub-Zero can amplify the Ice Ball. Now, why is this useful? Well, normal Ice Ball is 30 frames, takes 30 frames to get across the screen. Takes a little over half a second to get there. On Amplify, it's 20. It's 33% faster. And what's more, it eats projectiles most of the time. It eats most standard projectiles as it's coming in. So Aaron Black's Scud shotting your ice balls out of the sky, say no and amplify the bitch and knock them down. Now, when you hit twice, you get damage. And you can get uppercut damage if you meet over 2 ice balls, but I wouldn't recommend it. Stick to it just being that, and then you should be A-okay. Then there's Cold Shoulder, and that's it. These are all of the special moves in question. So Cold Shoulder is a mid version of the slide that covers about a third less range. It covers half screen instead of 3/4 of the screen. And it knocks the opponent down. This is a good way to end your combos, especially on Amplify, since the opponent is sent sliding. However, if this is a counter or a punish, Crushing Blow, closer to the opponent, and plus 24. The important thing here is that he's closer. Close enough to potentially get a 4-2 off. Whereas if he didn't get the Crushing Blow, he wouldn't be able to get a 4-2 off unless he did 2 of them in a row. Not a healthy prospect. So he could, in theory, do this, and then you try to counter, then he eats this instead. Now let's move on to the next variation and talk a little more about zones in particular. Okay, before we begin, I'm going to change stages. And I'm going to talk a little more about what I mean, what a lot of people mean when they say, oh, this character is a zoner, or he's playing in a zone. There are, generally speaking, 4 main zones in Mortal Kombat. There's close, sweep, far, and then full screen. And then these all have their own benefits. They have their moves that hit and moves that don't hit. If you're at close range, anything touches. At sweep range, some of your farther reaching normals are kind of the threshold. See what I mean? At this range, which would be about jumping distance, or which would be considered far, no normals, I think, can ever really hit this unless they're really good. But a lot of projectiles are going to come out and be able to cover a pretty decent range. And then you have full screen, which is where the keep away characters love to be. They love to be here, they love to throw projectiles, and they don't want you touching them. So, let's go over very quickly one of the best things to deal with this, and that is slide, which we're going to talk about real fast first. So slide, as I mentioned, covers about 2/3 of the screen. It's not quite full screen, but pretty close. And look, I'm right up in your face. This hits, it's a low. So overhead low, low, you get a mix this way, which is something that Dead of Winter lacks. By the way, this is, I can't remember what this variation is called. It's called Thin Ice in the competitive variation, but I just have it called Canadian because he's red. And has red dragon axes, so cool. But he can even side switch. If he's cornered, just do this and side switch, boom, now he has the corner. What are you gonna do about it? Fight for your life. That's what you're gonna do. But the point is that you use this to either catch opponents or end combos, especially on Amplify. Because look at that. Now you're at full screen again, and at almost full screen again, you can throw projectiles. The Amplify has a crushing blow that if you amplify it 3 times, if you amplify it twice, actually, amplify the slide twice, then your 3rd Amplify will be a crushing blow. I wonder, actually. Yeah, you can't amplify it on whiff, but that's the idea. So, you'll see a lot of Sub-Zero Sub-Zeros do this. So. Or something like this, where they do this, and then you end it with that slide to get big boy damage. Because it's a little bit easier to get this than it is to land the shield one, because the shield one is a counter or punish with that shield. However, like the axes, this thing is death on block, but it's even worse. -20. Again, just about any attack is going to punish this thing. So, except for most fatal blows. But generally speaking, you're gonna punish this thing. Watch for it on block, and you'll be able to. But remember, he's low enough that the highs will actually whiff. So you want to go for a mid punish instead. Fortunately, in Scorpion's case, he has his forward 3, which, as we talked about, is a little bit nuts. Now let's go back to zones. So, in Sub-Zero's case with the zones, at this range, he's going to throw projectiles, right? At a range where he can't touch it with slide, he's going to throw projectiles. At about this range, he'll throw projectiles, or some crazy Sub-Zeros will try and slide. But if it's a whiff, or if you block this, you see it coming and you block this, it's good night for that Sub-Zero. At about this range, at the start of the match range, this is where it gets rough, because he could slide. He could slide, yes. But he could also throw out an overhead, which is rough. This overhead complements this low really well. And if he has that crushing low lock, oh, you just ate 34% for guessing wrong. And if you try to punish it, again, 31%. But as if that weren't enough, let's say he's just a little bit closer. Now he has his real mix. Now he has a really good mix. He has a low, he has an overhead, he has a low special move that he can use to mix people up, and he has throws. Especially in the corner, this becomes scary because guess what? He can just keep doing this because if he does a forward throw, then look at how close he is. He's close enough that he could do either a back 3 or a forward 2, which is rough dealings. However, because most Sub-Zeros like to go for this, if you see this coming, tech it. Press the tech for the forward throw, and then you'll get them off of you. Of course, a competent Sub-Zero might get tricky and do a back throw instead. Sure, this gives the opponent a little bit of range, but for some characters this is actually beneficial because Sub-Zero can actually outzone them in this variation. And then go in, and then sweep you, and then, oh, you guessed wrong again, and he's eating a back throw for damage. A little bit rough, but that's the thing you gotta watch out for when it comes to zoning with Sub-Zero. Technically, this is a form of zoning, using the range of the forward axes and the kicks to your advantage in order to make yourself safe and force the opponent to eat mix that they really don't want to eat. That's what a lot of people mean when they say zoning. This is what makes zoning interesting. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna sit back and throw projectiles all day. That's keep away. What zoning should be in your head is, oh shit, I'm in the zone for him to throw out these overheads. I need to start stand blocking if I think I can. Or I need to be wary of these lows because now I'm in the zone to get these lows. He's gonna throw these combos. It's gonna be a bad time. And I should also preface this by saying that generally speaking with Sub-Zero, outside of Variation 1, you should be mostly blocking low. If you can't fuzzy the if you can't fuzzy guard either the on the axes on reaction, then just block low. The worst that's gonna happen if you block low and you don't do anything is you eat an uppercut's worth of damage, and then he maybe comes in. But if he's coming in, you can beat him with a low poke or a wake-up attack or what have you. And I would much rather, personally, from a damage perspective, unless it's going to kill me, I would much rather eat one of these than eat one of these. You know what I mean? And even without the crushing blow, you could see it being like this. Look at that. That was already more damage than this. So I would rather try and block low most of the time, especially since outside of the overhead, outside of this and most of the jump attacks, Sub-Zero doesn't actually have any overheads. And when it comes to defending against throws, that's very easy. Just let go of crouch block. If you expect them to throw after this, all you do is when they're coming in is just crouch. And if they crouch and they go for a throw, you know what that means. Get your punishes on. Now, let's talk about the moves that make this variation special. None of them can be amplified. In fact, only slide can be amplified in this variation. Air Polar Axe. Uh-oh, air projectile. And it comes downwards. Don't worry. Whether it hits your head or it hits your toes, this move is a mid. No matter how it hits you, it's a mid. So you can crouch block this. And you don't have to worry too much about that. In fact, on block, it's -3. If I do it really close and try to fake you out, it's -8 or 9, which is punishable. And even if I decide to do this, yes, I'm +1, but you blocked it. It's going to be less damage for you to have to worry about. I believe on Flawless Block, I believe it actually does no damage. I think. Let me double check. Yeah, it does much less chip damage, and you need to be wary of that as well. If they can Flawless Block this, they can Flawless Block a lot of things, and that's generally not a good thing that you want to deal with when you're throwing axes at the opponent's face. Next is Frigid Storm. This 8% projectile shrinks down the further it travels, making it a little bit easier to jump over the further it's traveled. But even at close range, if the opponent isn't expecting it, they'll eat this. But keep in mind, it has similar startup to the Ice Ball. Ice Ball is 28, Frigid Storm is 36, and it travels about as fast as well. So if you block this at close range, he's -8, meaning that if he tries anything, he's gonna get punished. He's got to block. And even if he were to throw this out from full screen, he may be +16, but he's from full screen, so he has to do it again, which is 20 frames that he's got to hold. Then there's Death Sickle Barrage. This move is really good on chip, and can be good for ending certain combos. If I can actually get it to... Oh, it doesn't combo, that's right. Yeah, so you might think it combos in certain situations. It actually never will combo, because it's 36 frames on startup, for crying out loud. It's like trying to get this thing to combo. If you can get this to combo, so... Even then, you notice something about that? That's because the projectile moves slower than this when it's ready to be active, and because Sub-Zero backs up, this will never combo. And that is really useful, because on block, which this move actually excels at chip damage for, see all that chip damage, Sub-Zero's -18 at this range. A far-reaching mid is going to clip him, and it's going to punish him, and that is what you absolutely should do. So, keeping in mind that Sub-Zero may have gaps that he doesn't want you to exploit, so he backs up. Just keep blocking. He'll eventually he'll keep himself at a certain range. This is about as far as the Death Sickle Barrages are going to land. And he's -14 at this range. Safe, but remember, that's as far as they'll reach. Any further, and the moves just won't come out. And you can throw a spear, projectile, what have you, in order to say, ha, idiot, and beat him. So, this is punishable as all holy hell. And on Flawless Block, you eat way less chip damage. You Flawless Block the first one, you take 90% less chip damage. That's a lot less chip damage. So, let's turn Flawless Block off. It turns that chip damage to basically negligible if you Flawless Block this thing. And remember, if you block the Death Sickle Barrage, let's say he goes for it at about this range, and your Scorpion you can do a reversal punish with the spear, or a reversal teleport. Hang on, can I do reversal back two? I think I can. Yes, and that is an actual punish, which means they do this at this range, open them up for a combo. And of course, because of its long startup animation, if you're a Scorpion, you can get out of dodge pretty quickly. Look at that. Scorpion is out of range of the icicles before they really come out. See what I mean? Turning this into a combo opportunity for Scorpion. And into anybody, really. If you have a far-reaching normal that can beat this, use it on block. And then Death Sickle Barrage instantly doesn't become scary anymore. The only thing I recommend you need to keep an eye on is remembering that Death Sickle Barrage hits 5 times. It always hits 5 times, and it whiffs 3 times. So it's not extendable like Baraka's Chop Chop, but it always hits 5 times. So if you're so inclined to try and block this thing, as you should, if you have more than chip death range, block this and then count out loud or in your head 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Punish. then you'll be able to punish him no problem. On to the final variation, which is called Avalanche. Now we're in another custom variation here just to mix it up, and I'm also actually going to change Scorpion to keep things interesting, but this is, we just built it earlier, this is his competitive variation in Avalanche. What benefits does Avalanche get in compared to other variations? You have mix-ups again. You have a low in Creeping Ice. On Amplify, this hits pretty far. Like, it can hit from back here. Or maybe back here. There you go. So, it can hit from the mainframe here. And that knocks the opponent back pretty far. Just within slide range. Not that, again, I would throw out a yellow slide, but that's an example of something you could do. But the reason why this is scary is, remember, overheads and lows that are normals. So, overhead, so this suddenly becomes overhead low, low, low. Similar amount of damage as here, but now you're knocked further back, and Sub-Zero's plus 31. So, he can get a forward dash in. And if he does get a forward dash in, guess what? He can hit you with the axes again. He's within range of the axes, but he's not within range of the lows. So if he does low thing, blah blah, dash in, he's out of range of the noggin. But two dashes, which can be cancelled in this game into various normals, is dangerous. Very dangerous indeed. Because remember, at this range, he has his lows, and he has his overheads. So, and he doesn't have to commit to a slide for the mix-up, because remember, if you block the slide, it's punishable. But, if you block Creeping Ice on its own, it's minus 10 instead of minus 20, meaning less moves are going to punish this thing. And if he amplifies it, he's minus 5 with all of this range. So, safe mix with bar. That is what makes this thing scary. And indeed, that's not all. I believe Flawless blocked this. Oh, I have it on stance hold. I need Flawless. There we go. Flawless, it becomes minus 50. So it does lose some frame data. And of course, loses some chip. But overall, it's something you need to watch out for and be ready to punish. But if you're too eager to punish, remember, noggin. Then there's Arctic Trap. This is for those setup Sub-Zeros. It's a mid-attack that freezes, and it's a clone. However, this goes away on throw every time. No matter what, you can't throw the opponent into this unless you do a mirror slide. I can't actually recall if it counts towards the crushing blow though, so we're gonna try something. There. So we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do, wait, for that I should actually do, where is my meter options here? Refill. So, okay, that's 2, theoretically, right? But remember, our crushing blows are off, so it doesn't actually count. What it means by amplifying is it wants you to shove the opponent through the wall 3 times. So you actually lose a crushing blow potential if you do that. So on the surface you might think, well then what the hell's the point of the clone? Well, the point of the clone is that, let's say you get the opponent in the corner. We're going to speed this along just by knocking them over here. Let's say you do this. They wake up into it. Unless it's invincible, they eat the ice. They do that. We out-footsie them, set this up. They're trapped in the corner. And then they're eating more damage. See what I mean? That's what it's for, is enforcing corner pressure. This is just like the clones in Mortal Kombat X, but they don't have a hitbox. And the clones actually, but they're like an attempt to balance the clones. And by the way, it's active for 3 full seconds, so gotta be wary about this sort of thing. If he sets this up, it could be big trouble. That is Sub-Zero in a nutshell, and we already talked about his Fatal Blow a little bit, but we'll just do a quick overview of it. It's a 25 frame mid, and can be comboed into, I believe it does a little bit more damage on its own than Sub-Zero's, or than Scorpion's, or about the same amount. And you can combo into this thing. From mid-screen. And you can do it while they're standing, meaning that you don't have to launch them. But the combos you get aren't quite that worth it unless you're closing out a round. So keep that in mind. Don't forget to be awesome, and I'll see you guys on the other side.